Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for one of our very first journeys on our Xero webinar series. So my name's Rebecca. Hopefully some of you do know myself, not Will, if you can see a nice picture of him. And joining us on the call is also Frankie.
Hi, yeah, coming from the kitchen in Norfolk, ready to show you some handy hints on Xero.
Cool. So I will be doing some lovely sharing of the slides. So again, at any point in time, if you've got any questions, any queries, just give us a shout, put it in the Q&A box. We'll try to get to them. If not, we'll make sure we'll send them as a follow-up. So let's get started. So today we are looking at sales and settings. So we wanted to start here to make sure that we go back to basics, as some of you may be new to Xero, some of you may have been using it for a while, just to make sure that we've got everything covered. So in this part, we're going to look at organization settings, contacts, and the users.
Marvellous. So when Rebecca and I sort of created this agenda, I made a huge list and we realised half an hour wasn't enough. Hence why we're starting with the sales. So I'm just jumping straight into Xero dashboard, which hopefully most of you are familiar with. And I really am going back to basics in terms of we'll click up in the corner here and I'll go to settings. And the reason I'm going here is just to make sure that your organization settings are actually in here. So I'm going to click on the top box there. And it is just a case of making sure that your company name is in here. If you've got a different trading name, by all means, put that in. Put a logo in, put some jazz in, quite easy. I can just quickly change logo, go browse and find the logo. Again, put in a little bit of description. Xero's got some algorithms behind the scenes, so they're sort of collecting data, and it's really useful information that they then give as reports to accountants as to what sort of companies are using Xero, where they are. So that's really important. And then just for the sales side, make sure you put your address on, but also your phone number and email address, and even your website. And the main reason I'm saying that is because as part of one of the processes that Final Clerk does for clients is we make payments to suppliers. And it's so frustrating when you want to perhaps check bank details to make sure they're legit. It's just to have those details to be able to call somebody. So frustrating to have to Google. Just make sure all your information is accurate and in place here. The next point we're going to look at is the actual information about your customers. So I'm going to jump straight into one of the contacts, which you can access by clicking contacts at the top. I've already got basket case open. Love that name. And then down the side, you'll be able to see all of basket cases information. And what this acts like is like a little mini CRM for you. So you don't have to go and get a bolt on, but also it starts to default. When you create a sales invoice, it will pre-populate those fields for you. So even if it just removes one click of a button, that's saving you one click across all the clients and all the invoices that you might be creating. So in basket case here, obviously that's their company name. You might notice this account number. That's like an old school thing from Sage where you used to have to search by account numbers. You don't have to fill that in. So one of the key things here is, again, when you're sending sales invoices, make sure you're sending it to the right person, because a lot of companies have got approval processes. So let's say you just send it to the bloke that you ordered it. He might not have any payment priority at all. So what you need is you need to have the accounts department send it to people that pay, but also to the person that can approve it for the accounts to pay. So you can easily add up to 5 contacts on here. So at the moment I've got Mary Munn, so that is my client, but also the accounts department. And another little handy thing is, like most of our clients at Final Clerk, we use Receipt Bank. So why not just send the invoice straight to Receipt Bank for them? So I've put in the Receipt Bank at me email address. So add up to as many contacts as you need. But then scrolling down, obviously populate as much information as you can. This is the bit that then just saves a bit of your time. So here for basket case, I have set my default sale, i.e. basket case always buys from me donkeys. I sell various things, including bow ties, but they always buy donkeys. So I've defaulted it. You can then overwrite it later, that's not a problem. Then underneath here is something called tracking, which we'll be coming to later. But tracking is basically another way to analyze your sales. So I've said that Basket Case is an East Side and Forrest Gump is the person in my company that always sells the Basket Case. So I've completed the defaults. I've also said they're in Austria, just made that one up. That helps if it's an EC sale, which you need to report with your VAT return. So if they are in the EU, get the VAT number. The other little point to mention here is credit limits. This is something really important to be checking. You can use various products. Rebecca, I think we were talking about Satago for basically what's their credit rating. Should you be giving them credit at all? So Basket Case, I've given them £1,000. I've preset their currency to euros because that's what I have to invoice them in. And then down the bottom, I've got invoice theme. So again, we'll be covering this later, but you can create different invoice templates. So you might have one with the UK bank details on, but also one with the Euro bank. So here I've chose my very orange themed invoice. And then the credit terms that I've given Basket Case. Again, I've given them 30 days that they need to pay me of the following month. Just one little question that people do always ask is, what is a Xero network key? So obviously Xero wants to rule the world. We want to be the #1 accounting product. So if that's the case, why don't we share our network key with one another? And that means that we just ping a draft invoice to somebody else with the same, they give us their key, and then our invoice will appear in their system for them to approve. Just a little hint if you know someone uses Xero. So that's contact. So yeah, make sure you're sending the invoice to the right person that can actually approve and can actually pay it. Make sure you also set the credit limits. Just to very quickly cover on credit limits. Sorry, Rebecca, jump in if ever there's a slide that I'm just completely ignoring.
That's absolutely fine.
I've just got a draft invoice in front of me at the moment. This is the new invoicing screen that some of you might think, oh, this doesn't look like normal. So this is Xero's new design. I've chosen Basket Case, and what's great is if I click on his name, it tells me that he already owes me £914. So his credit limit's 1,000. So in theory, this invoice is going to push him over the credit limit. Do I want to make this sale to him? Is there any issues that we need to address? Close that. So that's how the credit limits now work. Really, really handy. If you've got people on the floor just creating sales invoices, this is a good flag for them just to say, whoa, I don't know if I want to sell for this person. I'm gonna pause for a second and let Rebecca jump in with the next section.
Lovely. Cool, yeah, and as Frankie mentioned, some of these features are quite new, and I think actually they'll help take a step back and revisit again some of the basics. So naturally, if you run a contracting business or anything where you offer credit terms, so you say, okay, I'm going to give that person 30 days, you know, do you check people for money laundering? And as we mentioned, Satago is a really great product because actually you're checking the company, not the individual. And again, you might say, okay, I'm going to give them £1,000, but on certain products, they actually advise you again of what that credit limit should be. And again, we'll identify the risk. So I think that in this climate, they're really good, handy things to go and have another look at or reach out to the team, you know, just to sort of give you that safety net at the back. So moving forwards, we're looking at user settings. So this will be on a slide because we're using demo data. So user settings, we want to invite the team in there, and as we know, teams might do different roles, so you might not want them seeing all your bank information. So to add somebody in, we're going to go to settings and click on the users. You can then see there'll be different tabs to select whether they're going to be payroll, business, and you can then start to see which role would you like them to do. But again, under that list, you're already going to see who has access to your Xero and what level. So we would naturally review that data as a client if you've just transitioned to ourselves, to obviously remove any historical people. But again, it's always worth having a look at it once in a while. Oh, sorry. So as a table, just again, we'll send out the full slides as it's quite hard to read, but you can kind of see the different roles and what they would then have access to. So typically Farnell Clerk will be an advisor. So we can do most of the roles here. Again, if you manage your own Xero, typically sometimes you will have that level of access as well. And as we go along, some people will only be able to draft. Some people will only be able to do, say, sales invoices or purchases. And again, you might have a few people that you just really want to give read only because, you know, they might have happy fingers and go changing your data. So again, with those, although you've got accesses along the way, there are certain other elements that you kind of can default to give them access to. And bank admin, again, we're not there yet, so it's not you're giving people access to your bank. It's a case of, can you let them edit that account? Can you let them, you know, set up a bank feed, maintain bank feeds, etc. And again, if you've got VAT returns, would you like that person to file the VAT return? So again, that level, you have to add that on as another option.
Just to jump in on the bank admin, the other key thing is if you're using Xero to make direct payments to your suppliers and you put their sort code and account details in the contact form, you don't want somebody being able to potentially log in and put their own details in there. So again, that's a really good checklist just to check any fraud is going on internally, which is horrible to think about, but it's something to be aware of. If any bank details are changed within Xero, there is a notification that goes out to all the appropriate users, but just stop it in the first place and don't allow them to be able to do that.
And as we're really keen and excited, we've already covered credit limits.
Sorry,
so,
yeah, I love it.
So we can go on. So now we're over to Frankie. We're going to look at a brief look at tracking. Again, how you can differentiate sort of your P&L and track different departments, splitting of income, and just a general overview of what we mean by charts of accounts.
Okay. So to start with tracking, let me jump back in. I'm going to show you a profit and loss, because I think it's the best way to be able to visualize what I'm talking about. So hopefully you're all familiar with profit and loss, sales, cost of sales, and then your overheads. But what's really interesting is, let's say I've got four, as you can see on this screen, I've got 4 salespeople in my company. Forrest Gump, not doing so well, Harry Styles, Prince Charles, and Tom Cruise, random celebrity names. And maybe at the end of every month, I want to see who's my best sales consultant, who's actually working really well at the moment. So what tracking does, it enables you to create almost sub-analysis titles. So you're allowed 2 tracking categories, and then you can have as many options. I think it's up to about 100 below. So for instance, I've got sales consultants as my 1, and then region as my 2nd tracking. So then what that enables you to do is, when you're creating sales or putting your purchase costs in, you can allocate it, that one more layer of detail. So it just gives you that real light insight, what's actually going on, who's doing what sales, or even what costs, because you put their wages costs there as well. So you can see for June, I'm not really that happy with Forrest Gump. He seems to be costing me. He seems to be selling donkeys without actually, or buying donkeys without selling. And then we've also got Tom Cruise, who's doing really well because he's sold loads of donkeys but not actually bought any. So it also might flag to you and go, well, hold on, how can I be selling if I haven't got anything? So that's one thing, that's the sales consultants. And then just to flip it, I've done regions. So here you'll see I've got East Side, North, West Coast, South. And again, that's for me to see if I've got 4 different locations, which one's actually making me money. It might be that they're not doing enough sales to cover their overheads. So tracking is something that's really, really important to think about. If you want that to be added, please do talk to us, because it might be that we can sort of pick your brains and make sure you think about how it actually works. But it's in advanced settings and in tracking. On the flip side, we then got sales codes. So again, Xero comes with default sales type A or something similar. Is that really meaningful to you? It might be that you've got different products that you sell. So you can see I've got quite a diverse sales base here of bow ties and donkeys. And again, it might be that bow ties are really not making me any money. But without me analysing that information, I'm not going to be able to make the decisions of cutting bow ties from my donkey business. I apologise for the randomness. I do just randomly think of words when I set these things up. So that's sales codes and tracking. So that's just you thinking, what will mean something to me at the end of the month, end of the year, whatever it is, where you can go, I can make a decision on my business based on these numbers. I'm just going to check with my lovely Rebecca. Is there another slide before I jump into my next section?
No. So we are now on to email settings. So again, it's going back to contacts, and what we're saying is we're going to look at is, again, do your customers have your right email address, which which Frankie kindly covered in the actual contacts page. A brief look at templates, because there's already some lovely templates set up, but you might want to put a bit more of a personal flair on them. And again, a little bit of invoice reminders, although we are going to sort of go through that in more detail on our next webinar.
Right, so the next, sorry, one second. I have a neighbour knocking at my window. I'm just on a call. That's what you get. Right, so I'm just going to jump into settings. So the way to get to here is, of course, go to the top corner again and settings. So I'm going to jump into the email section here and just go through the various options. So to start with, you can see email addresses. So obviously I'm logged in as Frances, but actually it might be that I don't want the invoices to come from me. I might want to sort of put a little bit of a line between me and the accounts team. So I've created Rebecca and I've called her my accounts team. So that means anything that I send from Xero now will be from accounts at or Rebecca at, rather than me. So you can add as many email addresses as you want, and as you're sending sales invoices, you can change that at the point you send it, but as a default, it's always going to come from accounts. So that's just a nice little handy thing. Next are templates. So these are the Xero default ones that come along with it. So when you send a statement, really quite basic, here's your statement, lovely. Not at all got any personality. So what you can do is you can create up to 10 templates for any of these topics. So whether it's when you send a remittance or an invoice or a credit note, you can tailor all of those. So I've created one here called Frankie's Friendly Finance. So I've just gone in and I've put some terrible English in. So yo, contact first name. So you can see these are placeholders, and you can view all the different placeholders that you can put in. And you can just put whatever tone or links that you want in here. So I've put, thanks for doing business. If you ever want to hook up, that's probably not the right term, click on my Calendly link, and I've put Rebecca's Calendly link, which then obviously means somebody can just quickly go and book an appointment with her without having to faff with emails. I've then obviously gone on saying, here's an invoice for my awesome work. Please view it online, which is really handy. Or also it'll be sent as a PDF. So you can really make these templates a bit more personal. Just as a quick thing, which we'll probably cover on the next webinar, but you'll see this online link. And the beauty of that is that as soon as somebody clicks on that link, Xero then updates your audit trail for sales to say somebody has viewed the invoice. That just means if ever in credit control time, someone says, oh, I've never received this invoice, you can perhaps call them out on it and say, well, somebody has. But we'll cover that on the next webinar. So that's my Frankie's Friendly Finance email template that I've created. I'm going to jump into the invoice settings unless there's something else that we want to talk about first, Rebecca?
No, because the next slide is invoice layouts. So we're heading in the right direction.
Cool. So again, I've come back to settings. So just as the third time, I go to the top corner, I go to settings, and I go to invoice. So again, Xero creates a nice, simple, easy to just rock and roll with from day one invoice layout. And that's called the standard one here. So quite quickly, you can build it to be personal. So if you go to options and edit, what it means is you can then just sort of say, tweak these different wordings. You can remove headings and remove different tax numbers, etc. But the really important thing is make sure, as I said before, your address is on here, which it will be if you filled in your organization settings. And the other thing is put your bank details on. Again, the amount of invoices that I see come through that then there's no bank details, and it just becomes painful for somebody to pay you. Let's make it as easy as possible. You'll notice some other little boxes here, payment services, which we'll be covering in a little while. So that's just make it easy, add your logo, make sure your bank details are on, and off you roll. There is the ability to make your own quite special invoice if you don't like Xero's basic layout. All you'd need to do here is go to branding, theme, and custom. What that enables you to do is basically download a Word document, which some of you might just instantly go, no thank you, I'm not interested. And I'll be honest and say I'm not a design type person, so this hurts my head to think about how you can tweak things. But what you do is you download the templates, again, the initial starting point. I'm not going to delve into too much of this, but if I just open the UK invoice, this is what it looks like in terms of placeholders, what information is dragged through. So this is the basic, and then you can add color, you can add logos, you can change the font. So if you really, really want to tailor your invoices, then this is the perfect place to do it. Perhaps just don't ask me because my design brain is not there at all. And what you'll see is there's this one here, the very orange invoice, which I can't show you right now, but it's quite fabulous on the demo data to have a look at. Other things in here, default settings. Again, if you're starting to use Xero from day one, these are quite important. And these are defaults. So the first one is your sales default due date. Again, this can be overwritten when you create the invoice, or it can be overwritten for a specific contact. But I'm going to say that actually I'm going to give all my clients 30 days after the invoice date to pay me. Obviously, when you're thinking about due dates, do make sure that your cash flow works to allow 30 days. If you've got to pay your suppliers in 15, then just consider what you're doing. The next thing is, if you're starting brand new today, new business, perhaps don't put number 1 as your invoice number. Perhaps just bulk it up and start at 521, just so it gives an impression that you're not a brand new business. And then you've got other things down here like quotes if you want them to expire after a certain time. So these are really important that you populate them now, and again it will just save you a few clicks later on. We have payment services. So I can show that if you, do you want to talk about that, Rebecca, whilst I just demo it beautifully here?
Yes, so just to recap on there, so we added covered invoice layouts. So again, add your bank details, add your logos. You might not have one, but again, it just gives a little bit more, a bit of fluff to your invoice flair. Multiple layouts for very different invoices. So again, you can have different invoice templates for different trades. All of which of when you create that sale, which we'll be covering on next time's webinar, you'll be able to switch between the different templates, so you can send your customers the right invoice layout for the different trading as is. Again, you can have different layouts for foreign currencies. Microsoft Word is the tool for the actual branding, so again that does have some limitations. And if you want to use the invoice settings layouts for packing slips, it also has that ability as well. So we covered some default settings, so the due dates. default your invoices. Again, that might be at a contact level, so that's going to be very, very specific to that contact, or you can do an overriding due date, as Frankie just showed us, and again the numbering. So next on the journey is the payment services. So again, yes, there will be a charge, and they do charge behind the scenes for using their products, but again, what we encourage the use of them because it gives the ability back to the customer to pay then. So they might get your invoice and go, yeah, I'm going to pay that now. It's in my mind, it's fresh. So they click on the link and they might then just enter their card details in there. The bonus is for you, you're not waiting those 30 days and you're getting the cash back into your bank account as quickly as possible. That would be where Stripe would come into it, because that would give you that little pay it now button on your invoice. If you're offering services, and people often think of direct debits as a repeat, you know, oh, I can't use that because somebody is not on a subscription. Again, it's not necessarily designed for that. It's a customer that would use you on occasions, on several occasions. So they could only just still be buying that one product or service for you in that 1 month, but later down the line they could come back again. And again, once you've got them signed up, you know that Xero is going to drive your invoices and do that, but the mandate is going to be in place. So again, you don't have to worry about chasing them for payment. You've got that reassurance that that money is going to be collected for you. So again, if there's anything new here, or you think you might like to set those up, obviously just reach out to the teams. So here's a little overview. Are you going to give us a little bit of a demo, Frankie?
Sorry, it's really quite straightforward and quite simple, sort of obvious what needs to happen. So from the invoice settings, if I just hop back, there's various routes that you can do this, but you'll just see up here payment services. I think it's in the settings section, and if you're using the new invoice layout, you can add payment services as you go then as well. So here you can see that it's telling us that I've already got PayPal, and it's telling me that I've got that on 2 of my invoice layouts. So I've created 2 invoice types, and I want both type of clients that pay by PayPal. If I wanted to add Stripe, which is your credit card, I just click the Get Started, and it tells me what I next have to do, what the fees are, I do or don't have an account, and you can link it that way. Again, the steps are really easy to follow, but we're more than happy to help if you'd like. But it might be that you use one invoice layout for your credit card people because you perhaps don't want that fine or that fee on that invoice. So you can choose where these payment services are sitting. Whilst if I hop back into invoice settings, again, I'm only going to quickly touch on this because it's here. And on the next webinar, we're going to do credit control and how to manage people that owe you. But invoice reminders, again, really easy to switch on here. And it's basically Xero will send an automated email 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, whatever period you want on an outstanding invoice. So again, you can see here, I can tailor the tone. I can make it nice and gentle and saying you may have missed my invoice, and I've got 14 days and then 21 days. And then I can add my legal pay. Why haven't you paid me? I'm going to go seek some legal advice. And then there's a quick little things here. So you don't want to be chasing people perhaps for £10, maybe not. Depends what you need. So you can set those there. The only thing just to be really wary and just to make sure client relations are kept well is do your bank reconciliation every day, or obviously let us do it because that's what we do, because you don't want to be chasing people who have paid, because that always leaves a bit of a bitter tone. So yeah, invoice reminders, really easy to switch on here. I suppose the only thing I would say is you can tell it's a computer has chased. So I don't know about you, but I have a lot of things going to my clutter and I review it and then I delete them. So potentially the way that Xero works for the chaser isn't the most effective, but it's better than nothing. So do put it on if it's your only source of credit control. Right, that's all my notes and screen's ready.
Lovely. So yeah, just as a quick, we looked at payment settings. Sorry, I'll just go back a slide. There's two ways, as Xero likes to give you multiple options of how to do things. You can just do it directly from the settings page and click either the relevant one or search for the others. Again, we sort of use Stripe and Go Cardless. And again, you can do it directly from the invoice settings themselves. And we briefly had a look at invoice reminders. Again, there's templated emails. You might want to add your personal touch to them. You might want to add extra chase days in. But again, Xero gives you that sort of functionality. If you do want to go to that next level, again, we'll have another look next time, but if we then go outside of Xero into Chaser, just gives that sort of bit more professional, personal touch back to it and the overall CRM. And we often use that for clients here at Farnell Clark. So we've just about done it in time. Thank you for everybody who's stayed with us. So we're going to do these every fortnight. So again, there'll be a number 2 session on sales where we're going to look at how to create them, have a look at a bit more about statements, delve into more detail in credit control and reminders, and again, have a look at the reporting section, because we know that that's really important and there might be a lot of hidden reports that could be very useful for you. So we're going to do that on the 30th of July at 11. But thank you for joining us.